Shalom, welcome to Tanya Wide Open at G4. I'm not sure what parak we're actually up to. Do you remember? If we're up to 8 or 9, we did Chochmas Umos Olam. We talked about Chochmas Chetzonius. No, I think we did. I think we're up to chapter 8.
I missed the last shoot.
We spoke about Chochmas Chetzonius, yeah?
That was 2 weeks before Pesach or 1
Yeah,
week
man,
before
okay.
Pesach?
So anyway, just Yaakov, I want to just respond to what you said. The idea of like when you take on something to break your ego, yeah, the way that we've understood now the idea of ego, it's so much more nuanced, it's so much more subtle, that the way that I understand it is you can't actually do that, like what you just said. So where is it? How do you work on your ego? And I think this is a very profound idea, is that according to everything that I've learned, I say this a lot, but according to everything that I've learned, I think the only indication of where you're holding in your relationship with Rabboni Shalom is your Avos Yisrael. Literally. When you look at another person and there's whatever negativity, however that manifests, we've all got our different, we've all got our different upbringing, we've got all got our different natures and nurtures, yeah? So negativity would manifest in all different ways. But that was the inyan of Sinas Chinam by Chorban by Sheni. Because when you really, what is Sinas Chinam? How do you hate someone for free? And then if you've got a reason to hate them, then it's not Sinas Chinam. So what is it? How do you just look at someone? He's got like a funny face, yeah. He's got so you hate him for his face. Already, that's not Sinas Chinam. So what's the inyan? Because in the Gemara there it says, if I remember correctly, it speaks about the Chorban Bayis Rishon, Chorban Bayis Sheni. That by Chorban Bayis Rishon there was the Gimel Chomuros. They were over and Voidazar Giluas Shrichas Damim. Yeah, but they were ma'amin in Hashem. That's what it says. And then it speaks about Chorban Bayis Sheni, and they had Torah mitzvahs gemilas chasadim. It doesn't say tefillah, it says Torah mitzvahs gemilas chasadim. But because of Sinas Chinam, there was Chorban Bayis Sheni. And then there's a machlokes.
Lo barchu b'tchila, but yeah.
Olo what?
They didn't bench on Birkas Torah.
Oh, okay. This Gemara, I don't think it actually does it mention that in that Gemara though?
I don't know if it's that Gemara.
I'm not sure if it was that Gemara in Yuma. But anyway, I'm not sure. But anyway, but the Ikka thing it says there is anyway, it's all tied in. It's the same idea anyway. That they had Torah mitzvahs gemilas chasadim, but with Sinas Chinam. And then there's a big machlokes that with Rabbi Yochanan and Reish Lakish and Yehuda if what's worse. And it comes out that it was a vade worse the second Chorban because it lasted for so much longer. The first Chorban was only like 80 years, yeah. So what is Sinas Chinam? And you end up when you cut this, you get such a deep insight into our avoida and what it really is. Have we got a whiteboard?
Yeah.
Okay. Over here in the corner.
What's up, partner? Aight?
Yeah.
Aight?
Hey?
Aight.
Aight?
That means
You aight?
you're aight. Are you alright? You're aight.
Aight. Oh, code word.
No, it's looking up from the hood.
It's a short hood.
And then
you're right.
the Jamaican would respond, everything is Irie.
I read?
Irie.
What's I read?
Irie means alright.
Irie.
Irie.
Torah Mitzvah something that's sin. So the whole Torah Mitzvah was
This is a
missing.
good time to work on it because of the.
Yeah, man, sure, yeah. I didn't plan on talking about this at all.
Because there's a lot
Exactly why the Talmidim of Rabbi Akiva were nifta. Sinas Chinam. So it's a very it's if you've been learning with us for the past few months, then it should be quite straightforward. But it's definitely a chiddush from the Welt's understanding of willing. We have a
Probably one of
there's
those.
Blue one.
I love this place so much. Such a good place. Okay, shkoyach. So, okay, let's do it this. This is the Nefesh HaBahamis. Okay, you call that your
Drive, physical drive,
your survival instinct, which is really the survival instinct. When we talk about Ratzon, yeah, the idea of a Ratzon without a Siba, yeah.
How could that be? If I have a will, there's a reason why.
Abundance, too
No.
much, too much.
Will without a
Something you
Siba.
have already, but you don't.
It's
A
just
will without a Siba, there's one will that you have without any Siba whatsoever. This is most
will to
probably
live.
the will to live. Your desire to live is not predicated on any reason. Reasons flow from your desire to live. So a cat, it can be. There's a couple of ways that can be that I know of that can be damaged. That the less likely is when a person is in chronic pain, and we'll explain why that. You'll understand in a minute why that is. When a person is in chronic pain, they can lose their will to live. Yeah, which makes a lot of sense when you understand what the will to live actually is. And then the much more common occurrence, which is what accounts for most suicide, is a riboy machshava, where the machshava becomes so intense, such negative, intense machshava, just like the sun is always shining, but you have clouds cover the sky, yeah, so you end up not knowing there's a sun there. That's the same inyan of most suicides. So there's a story that I always tell that you can look up yourself. Shalom Aleichem. Welcome. You can look up yourself on YouTube. There's a guy, I've said this to you before, a guy who tried to kill himself by jumping off the Golden Gate Bridge, and he wasn't matzliach. And it's like a 1% chance of jumping from that height that you'll live. So him and a few other guys are alive after taking the decision, taking the jump, so to speak, pun, and he said the same thing, that all of them, I think he said it on like a WhatsApp group or something, that all of them agreed that as their hands left the railing, literally, as their hands left the railing, they regretted their decision. All of them said the same thing. Why? Because...
Yeah, clarity.
What?
We had a moment clarity.
Meaning that the clouds cleared, they were... The abject terror, the Tanya speaks about this in chapter 18, 19, that the abject terror of what was ahead of them discontinued the machshavas. The thoughts for the first time in years completely went away, and they were aware of the sun, the will to live, which never went away. They weren't in chronic pain, they were in chronic thinking. What?
They permanently were.
Permanently in bad
You know
thinking.
what I'm saying? The clouds were cleared and then stayed like that. They didn't
No.
want to.
Well,
Probably
just
for that
as
second,
they jumped
that
down, as they...
Well, if they
The will
live,
to live is a body.
Right, no, but
It's
assuming
not
that
a
once they
intellectual
survive,
thing.
It's a nefesh.
it's not anymore.
That's a complicated
Right,
question.
whatever,
It's a nefesh.
I mean,
It's not your neshama.
It's not
A cat
it's
has a
not
will
the
to
mind.
live. A cat has a will to
It's the
live.
heart.
A plant has a will to live. A single-celled amoeba has a will to live. Life wants to live. That's the definition of life. Life wants to live. Life has rotzon to continue to live. So the guy is talking about, he jumps out, so his thinking gets completely discontinued, and now that he touches his rotzon, because his rotzon was so covered over with negative thinking, he's like, man, I don't want to die.
But he's in midair already. He's like, he's
Yeah,
gone.
it's
He's on his way down.
What?
He's on his way down already.
Yeah, he had 3
The
seconds.
moment of enlightenment, and then
A lot can happen in 3 seconds, and a lot happened in 3 seconds, and he made it alive. Most people have that 3 seconds, and then it's off to
Where's
the...
this guy now? Where are these people now?
You can look him up on YouTube.
No,
This
but
is
I'm saying,
worth
yeah,
watching.
they went through this. So
He's
they,
dead.
Yeah, he made tshuva like on his own level, and he
He's
became
deep under.
Maybe
born
it's how it
again,
works.
whatever he
Maybe if you
was.
have
got
character,
hit
you
by a
have
bus
real
somewhere.
regret, then you survive.
The ambulance guy couldn't accept that.
You wouldn't know the other way.
What do you mean? You're saying like
All
Al
people who survived had regret, you said.
Oh, the other ones who didn't.
Maybe
like,
they didn't have regrets.
So this is an interesting thing in our generation. That's a really interesting point you brought up. And this is my own theory. What? Take it or leave it. I'd like to hear what you think about this. That see the Loshen in the Tanya, he says is alaroiv. When he talks about the idea of a kal shabakal, a pasha yid, a secular yid, giving up his life for the Rebbeinu Shalom. Yeah, when a goy comes and puts a gun to his head and says, "Your God, not your religion, your God, God echad or your life, Shem echad or your life," he will give his life alaroiv.
What does that mean?
Yeah, alaroiv means in the majority of situations. Yeah, as it says, afilu kal shebekalem upoishe Yisrael moisrim nafsham al kedushas Hashem alaroiv. And they go through terrible tortures. So they won't be koif on Hashem echad. But alaroiv, which is it's difficult philosophically when you take it in context of the Tanya. Why isn't it in every case? If he's describing the Metzias of the Jewish soul, where the nefesh of the kis just goes nuts.
Especially when he says later that your whole. You can tell yourself that even a kal shabakalim is going to well then maybe that's all a row.
Some of them exactly, some of them don't. So so what accounts for the Yidden who are the miyat, who can't give up their life for the Rebbeinu Shalom when someone puts a gun to his head, and it's the same thing that accounts for suicide in human beings. Alaroiv, people want to live. But there's a meat of people who will give up their lives, who will be mabed asasma b'das. Yeah, that's a metzias. So you can't say that everyone wants to live. It's alaroiv, everyone wants to live. So there's a meat of choyle nefesh, Okay, we're not talking about the pain thing, yeah? There's a meat of
they want to live.
What?
The etzim they want to live. It's just covered over.
Well, they want to live, but they wouldn't.
It's not
they're
really
not going to give up their life.
It's not on the person. It's on the life. Life wants to live. Anything that has like even an ant. You try killing an ant, it tries to run away.
Yeah.
Life wants to live. It's not about a decision.
No, but
it gets covered over.
Yeah, okay.
But etzim life.
But it means the
live.
mensch himself doesn't want to live.
Right.
Yeah, that's for sure. The mensch doesn't want to live. So, if the inyan is machshavas, yeah, which that's for sure the inyan. Now, in our generation, we've seen the world of machshavas go haywire. No one thinks like we think. There's never been a time where minds have been even a fraction as active as our minds. The stimulation we have with the media, with the food, with everything. It's insane how different our minds are in regards to thinking. That's why depression is so rampant in the more developed countries, because the thinking has gotten so out of control. I speak to people all the time, and it's like the amount of people who are afflicted with riboy machshava is basically like everyone. That was the reason why I put out the Reclaiming Sanity book, because that was what helped me. And that was a lot of avoida. That was a few years of big avoida, to the point where I was able to actually get my mind to just stop being a crazy megaphone that just doesn't end. Yeah, and the peace that comes with that, and the quality of life that comes with the quieting of the mind. That's why we put in all this energy and time into money into the Reclaiming Sanity. Anyway, so in our generation, I don't know if it would be alaroiv anymore. I think it might be more than that, because imagine this, yeah, the guy's hurtling down from the Golden Gate Bridge, would it shock you if you found out that as he was hurtling down, he was actually thinking, I hope someone's getting a video of this?
Be a good YouTube.
Attention, basically. Attention.
Would that shock you?
But they filmed it in
Would
advance.
that shock you if you heard that you
His
found
ego
out
is
somehow?
His ego is still there.
Wouldn't shock me at all. I wouldn't be shocked at all. You agree with me, no?
I don't know.
What?
They're so self-absorbed. I don't know if they can see that.
Right. No, that's why there's so.
No, that's the self-absorption. That's what I'm saying. The self-absorption, meaning I hope someone's videoing this because this could go viral.
No, Stephen Strong, he prepared in advance with the camera people
That's-
that I'm going to jump. You're gonna
That's
tell
for
me.
sure. That
That's for sure.
I've seen. That there's many videos of that online of people doing that. TikTok, TikTok suicides. They have it. Mamash TikTok suicides, Facebook suicides.
Oh, gosh.
Vadai, many. Yeah, Rahmanas. Little Japanese girls and stuff like that. Like little girls, just, that you see them walk up to the Binyan Rahmanas. That's that. We're not talking about that. I'm talking about a guy someone's decided to give up their life because they don't want to live anymore. But the thinking is so strong that's just all I'm saying is I don't know if the alaroiv of what the Tanya says is applicable anymore. I just don't know because we're in such a different generation where thinking is so what?
I think most people still have the will to live.
But the will to live for their Yiddishkeit, meaning everyone has the will to live. But we're talking about someone puts a gun to their head and says Hashem Echad, but bow to that idol or I'll kill you.
But the point is that he's saying al pirov because there's some people with chole nefesh. But if somebody has a regular will to live, then that chachma should pierce through at that moment.
It's
even
not
the
the regular will to
Kal
live. It's the neshama. It's not their will to live.
I
It's their will to
understand,
live
but
that
I thought
gets
your pshat was that
overridden.
al harov meant that since rov people have that basic will to live, then they're going to
No, it's the opposite. They'll give up their life. Meaning, most people have they're in tune enough with the neshama. Meaning that the nefesh of Bahamis, whose will, when you put a gun to a nefesh of Bahamis' head, and say bow to the idol or I'll kill you, he'll look at you and go immediately bow.
Yeah.
What are you talking about? It's not that the Nefesh of Bahamis is the one that's overridden. He wants to live. How does he want to live? How does he get cancelled? By the will of the Neshama. That the Neshama can't entertain the thought of being pulled from Hashem. So because of the intensity it's not because of the intensity of the Neshama, it is also that, but it's also, this is the point, is because of the level of intensity of the Nefesh Bahamis. If the Nefesh Bahamis isn't a raving psychopath, then the voice of the Nefesh Lakis will override it. But Kol Zman, the Nefesh Bahamis has become so loud and so pronounced I'm just.
But it's so funny because we're saying that the will to this people with chole nefesh, they would die anyway. But this al pirov, but they wouldn't die in this situation.
But don't forget, we're talking about the flip. We're talking about a completely mirror image. We're just using it as a moshel. The idea of a person would give up their. I hear what you're saying. You're getting it confused because we spoke about two opposite things, but they actually in the nimshal they're connected. But let's get back to this. The point is that was just a side point anyway. That the will to live, okay, is this you could call the will to live. The Nefesh of Bahamis will call it the will to live. We just got sidetracked about how could it be that people commit suicide, okay, which is a fair enough thing to ask. But this is really your will to live. Now your will to live, which is called Ratzon, is really a manifestation of the pneumius, which is called oineg, pleasure. The Nefesh of Bahamis' will to live is really an expression of its real desire, which is not to live, which is for pleasure.
That's why he wants to live, because he wants to have pleasure.
It depends. There's a lot of reasons why people eat. But pleasure is pleasure. Your will to live is actually the ultimate manifestation of your desire for pleasure.
So if you have the pleasure, why are you killing yourself for?
The what?
If you have pleasure, why are you killing yourself? If you have pleasure, you fulfill your will. So why would a person want to do suicide?
Well, that's we're
Darkness
talking about
is
with the
there.
machshavas. When you think your life is so pleasurable,
Right.
Nothing to live for. Right?
then you're going to have to live for, and you'll give it, and that accounts for what we said. When a person is actually in chronic pain, they can lose their will to live.
Hopeless. No more hope.
They
for
can't
pleasure.
imagine pleasure.
No more hope for future pleasure. Hope.
Yeah,
Just for
and
hope.
yeah, no, exactly. No hope for future pleasure and intense pain right now, and no connection to the essence of their mortal soul, of their created human soul. It's just like let me go, done, I'm done. So that accounts for both reasons. So the pneumius rotzon of the nefesh bahamis is tainug. Now, like we said, that manifests as the will to live. So now, what does that mean? The will to live. Right now, your life is not threatened in any way, shape, or form. Yeah. So what? Your will to live's gone. Meaning, I understand if I'm in a life and death situation in Asa, then my will to live is like pumping. But what about right now? We're all sitting here. We've got drinks in our hands. There's nothing threatening my life in any way, shape, or form. So what's with my will to live?
I'm enjoying pleasure right now. This is a form of pleasure.
So there's the enjoyment of pleasure, but that is, like we said, it's all bound up anyway. But the will to live, when your survival is taken care of, manifests as a will to make your life more, bigger, stronger, like we spoke about
Strengthen the
to
existence.
solidify your existence, like we spoke about in Be Humble, the idea of that wall, like the seed that I sent out last night with the wall. Yeah, that idea of the wall around you, that is what you are trying to construct. Now, the wall around me, by definition, in this soul, can't include anyone else. It just can't, by definition. So my wall around me, the Nefesh Bahamis wall around me, is actually not just a wall around me, it's a wall between us. You with me? Not just us, between every other person. That's called Sinas Chinam. That's Sinas Chinam. Now, how does that manifest? That could manifest in endless ways, depending on your nature and nurture. How does the fact that I've got this, do I want to conquer you? Do I want to run away from you? Do I want to destroy you? Do I want to use you? Do I want to trick you? Do I want to make you think something? It could translate in any way.
So where is Sinas Chinam sitting here? Is there Sinas Chinam?
I hope not. Sinas Chinam is when you are identified with your Nefesh Bahamis. This is the point of what I'm trying to say.
So we're,
This being is a Soine Chinam. That's what he is. Now you can train him. This is the avoider of the Umay Sa'olam. Is they have the same inyan. Yeah? For all intents and purposes, their Nefesh Bahamis, our Nefesh Bahamis is the same thing. There is a very profound difference, but it's like we've said before, it's the difference between a kosher piece of steak and a treif piece of steak. You cannot tell the difference between either one. Nothing, except for this one costs a lot more. Yeah, but literally there's no difference between them. You wouldn't be able to taste the difference as well unless you're a really big tzaddik. So you can train the Nefesh Bahamis in what's called the golden rule.
Control.
No, not behavturecha kamoicha.
Allah
Again?
It doesn't understand behavturecha kamoicha. That's why Hillel said to the goy, what's the first words? We're going to learn this on Sunday night.
We did it already.
The first what?
We did it already.
Oh, sorry, you're right. So that's the inyan of Yishuv Oretz, which is what the Mishnah says. That an Amma Oretz says what's yours is mine and what's mine is yours. That's an Amma Oretz. Mishnah Avos, yeah?
Socialism?
There's Shalish, the Chassid says Shalish Shelcha Shelach Shalish Shelcha, and the Amma says what's mine is yours, what's yours is mine. Why the Amma Oretz? that's an Amoris isn't a fool. An Amoris is a very gaseous. He's a gasticker person. He's not an idiot. You can get an Amoris who's a brilliant. Albert Einstein's an Amoris the Meiser. Yeah, it's not a din on intelligence. That sounds ridiculous. What's yours is mine. What's mine is yours. It sounds like a simpleton. Yeah, it's not. That's the laws of Yeshiva Olam. That's why it's called Am Ha'aretz. The actual word Am Ha'aretz is it's a completely weird phrase. What does it mean? A nation of the earth. You call a mensch Am Ha'aretz. We're just accustomed to the Loshen. But when you actually think about the translation of that, it's weird, no? A nation of the world, of the land. You're talking about a guy. He's an Am Ha'aretz. Yeah, the whole Indian. That's why they're called the Umas Ha'olam. The Umas Ha'olam. The whole point of the Umas Ha'olam is to give Yeshiva Aretz. They're here to be. Hashem wants a Yeshiva Aretz. So without the Umas Ha'olam, there'd be no world for us to bring back to Hashem. So that's the Indian on a micro level. That's the Indian of the Amarotzim in Am Yisrael. Is they're the ones who create the Yishuv. So that's the rule of Yishuv. Is what's mine is yours. What's yours is mine. That's called the golden rule. Meaning, I'll scratch your back and you'll scratch my back. And that's what Hillel said. Which means, what's the first word, which we said on Sunday, is me. You, what on you, son is hateful, don't do to the other. What's the first word of the whole sentence? Is you. Meaning extrapolate from your Metzias, that you're Manda Amma, and now appreciate that he's also, just like you, have got feelings and experiences and family and a whole thing going on, so too with him. And that you can train the Nefesh Bahamis to the point where you will end up with a Gandhi or a Stephen Covey.
To overcome its Sinas Chinam.
Where it's
not really. You're just taking care of yourself. It's the most selfish thing you can do.
Yeah, but we don't. That is true.
It's like a back-to-back.
However you want to talk about it, but it's still a very nice thing.
Doesn't Paraklam and Beis deal with this?
What?
Doesn't Paraklam and Beis doesn't deal with that?
Yeah, I mean that's the main place it talks. There's a lot of other places as well, but that's the main Indian of Avos Yisrael. But it's talking more about from the other side. It does say it will be an Avatalu B'Davra.
Right.
Whenever that's the whole point. Is it's Talui. I mean, Gandhi got to a tremendous madrega where he was really about other people. He was doing Tanaisim all day long. Ask the chatbot to give you a quick summary of Gandhi. You'll be like, wow, if this guy was Jewish, I would be thinking he's a big tzaddik. I don't know how I'm going to work it out now because he's not Jewish, so what do I do with that? Yeah, that's just silly. Yeah, he was of the Tzaddik Umas Ha'olam. I don't know if you could call him the Chassidei Umas Ha'olam, because the Chassidei Umas Ha'olam need to be Ma'amin in Har Sinai, because the difference between a Chassid and a Tzaddik on this Bechina is that the Chassid is in a relationship. The Chassid belongs to someone. The Tzaddik is Yasha. So that's the difference between the Chassidei Umas Ha'olam and the Tzaddik Umas Ha'olam. This is what I heard Rav Manis say to me, is that the Tzaddik Umas Ha'olam are the guys that you meet, if you met in your life, who are mamash straight as an Arab businessman. They're good, honest people. You can depend on them. You know what I'm talking about, yeah? But they're atheists.
So a lot of Jews are Tzadikei Umas Ha'olam.
Yeah. And a lot of Goyim are Tzadikei Umas Ha'olam. I know I've had such lovely interactions with so many Goyim in my life. That's how it is. There's a lot of very righteous people out there, and so, but they're not Chassidei Umas Ha'olam, because you can't be a Chassid unless you have a Rebbe. Meaning, the Chassid means the Rebbe could be a Shem. It should be a Shem. Chassid means you belong to someone. That's what Chassid means. It means you've been acquired. Yeah.
Well, like a Talmud of Gandhi would be a Chassid of Gandhi, or is it only he wasn't around?
No, it needs to be. I mean, really, ultimately, you belong to Hashem. That's the point. I don't know how it would work with. That's a good question. I don't know.
Or today Christians who they're talking about Hashem, but they're just Chasidei Yashka. But what are they talking about? They're talking about Hashem. Like I've met Tzadikei Christians who are all they talk about is Hashem.
Yeah, I know. Yeah.
God spoke to me and I pray and I pray
Yeah,
all day
yeah,
and I'm
yeah,
thinking about God all day. They're like,
Yeah.
the Hasidim of Hashem. They're just like.
No, well, they can't be Chassidim of Hashem in that they could be Chassidim of a tzura of Hashem. They can't because they're human beings. The only thing that can relate to the Rabboni Shalom is a neshama. That's it. Meaning everything else in creation is sphera. But sphera's I don't know enough to say that. I don't know. But I suppose if a neshama can, then a vada sphera can. But a neshama relates to the Rabboni Shalom because it's of the Rabboni Shalom. It's a chelek elokai. It looks at the Rabboni Shalom. A created being is always going to be dealing with a tzura of the Creator. Now, it could be very, very adin, refined. It could be very elevated, very refined, but they're a human being, so they're doing it through their human soul, which at the end of the day is not going to be the Rabboni Shalom.
I'm just trying to define what is a Hasidic Umas Ha'olam.
Yeah, so the definition, according to the Rambam, we understand it. The definition of Hasidic Umas Ha'olam is a righteous Gentile who is ma'amin in Har Sinai and is shown with the Sheva Mitzvah Noach.
Okay.
That's the if you're ma'amin in Har Sinai, then you're shown Mitzvah Noach. That's the so you've got and then but the point is not by default because you would have a righteous goy who he's not going to be cursing out God, yeah. He's not going to be bowing to Avodah Zarah. He's not going to be unfaithful to his wife. He's not going to be killing. He's not going to be stealing.
He's just not doing it for Hashem.
Hashem's not in the picture. So he's not doing it because of it's not because of a tzivui. It's because of he came to that conclusion by himself. And a guy in a different, levush, who came from a different nature and nurture, came to a different conclusion. So it just makes sense to be. This is the whole point of Yishuv Olam Shemlechem, is that you are. It makes sense. Dalayich Sani Lachaverch Lo Yisavid. It makes sense. Oh, Dalayich Sani Lachaverch Lo Yisavid. It makes sense. You scratch my back, I'll scratch your back. And then it could work out that you could get so elevated that you'll realize that me scratching your back is actually the biggest geschmack. I have here, this is so profound. See this thing? I cut it out, I copied it and cut it and put it in the back of my Tanya. Tony Robbins, who is, Anthony Robbins? Yeah? So in his book, it was Awaken the Giant Within, I think, written many years ago. By the way, that is what we learned about Live Life. Awaken the Giant Within is a 500-page thesis on the principle of live life. That's what it is, from every way. It's a bit of a boring thing to go through, but anyway. So in the book, like they used to do in the old days, is they bring quotes, all over the place from different famous people. Yeah, nowadays you can do the chatbot, the ChatGPT. If you do a thing for quotes of famous people and then ask the ChatGPT to give you its own quotes, it will smash them. Smash them. The greatest thinkers of all time, the ChatGPT will destroy the greatest quotes you ever heard. And if you take that quote and put it into ChatGPT, it will make it better as well. It's amazing. Anyway, so in his whole book, I just thought it was very hashkachadik, there was one quote in his whole book from him himself. They're all from, Gandhi and all, Jefferson and all kinds of Franklin and all that heavy, yeah? Aristotle. And there's one from him himself. It says like this: only those who have learned the power of sincere and selfless contribution experience life's deepest joy, true fulfillment. So you hear I don't know if you want to call it hypocrisy, the contradiction in that thing, in this statement. Only those who have learned the power of sincere and selfless contribution experience life's deepest joy, true fulfillment. Meaning the best thing you can do for yourself is be selfless. And that's Pashut true. It's Pashut true. The people who go through the hardest time in their life, the more narcissistic a person is, the more Gehenna he's in. And it works like that, because that's how he gets cleansed of his narcissism. Either he'll die through his narcissism, or he will be cleansed of his narcissism through suffering in this world, which is Gehenna. I don't, according to how I understand it, I don't know if Gehenna is a place you go to after this world. I think it is this world. It's stuck in yourself in this world. So this world anyway is a funny thing. It's either you're in reality or in yourself. There's only two options. I think the second option is called Gehenna. That's just my own understanding of things. Anyway, so this is the inyan of the Nefesh HaBahamis, is you can train.
Why do you have that in your Tanya? Why did you put that there?
That's the whole inyan of that summarizes the entire avodah, the Umos Olam, the Umos Olam. The Umos Olam, of the Umos Olam, that summarizes.
This is not a book for the Umos Olam.
No, but you have to. One of a very deep avodah of Tanya is getting very, very clear on what the difference between Yisrael and Umos Olam are. I mean, that's Pasha. If you don't know what a goy is, well then how can you be Jewish?
Know your enemy.
I mean, you don't even, what?
To know your enemy.
No, Chas v'shalom, not to know your enemy, not in that sense.
Know who you are.
You need to know, like, because Kozman, like you're like my kids who go to these Haredi schools in Yerushalayim, yeah, their picture of the Umos Olam are people walking around with axes, and having niyuf with
I
sheep.
need to know the opposite of you.
And that's not true.
What?
That's true.
Well, so,
It's true, that is the idea.
no, so this is the point.
Yourself.
Kozman, that's your concept of a human being. Now, what do you need to be Jewish? Well, don't kill people and don't have relations with animals, and you're good. But that doesn't account for people like Mahatma Gandhi and Stephen Covey. When I say Shalos Hanigoy, I think about Stephen Covey. I mean, usually I say without Kavanah. But if I was to have Kavanah, B'ezrat Hashem, I would think about Mahatma Gandhi and Stephen Covey. People who reach tremendous madrigas of humankind. What? Jordan Peterson, Avadai, a mamash, a righteous man. Avadai, a righteous man.
Can I ask the Sachakol of basically, so what is the difference between what Jordan Peterson is saying and what Tanya is saying?
There's no difference, it's the point. The point is,
So what is the Shalom
Anthony Robert makes
Sanigoy?
millions
what?
in the time.
So what is the Shalom Sanigoy? What do I have in mind when I say Shalom Sanigoy different than this quote?
Anthony Robert made millions.
that no matter
Tanya
how elevated a human being becomes, he can't serve Hashem. He's never serving. That's why the next level is Eved. And then after that is Isha. He's never serving Hashem because he's a human being. How can a human being serve Hashem? Meaning, it's always going to be a tzura of Hashem. The only reason why a Jew can serve Hashem is because he has a neshama. But he also has a human element as well. So you can learn a huge amount from the Umos HaOlam in regards to your human avodah.
So basically, Shalom Sanigoy is saying, I have a power in me, something that I'll never understand. Something that's greater, beyond my understanding. I have no idea what it is. And I'm okay with that, and that's for us.
That's why you need the Buddha, because you don't know what to make of it.
That's Yisrael.
You have the ability to serve God.
Because you don't know.
You
Fantasy,
have the ability to serve
imagination
God.
is-
It's not just from a selfish. It's not just from a selfish, humanistic ability.
They'd say it more like that. It's not from a
actually
human. They'd say selfish is not fair to say that. I understand exactly what you're saying, and you're right. But for us, it's better to just talk about a human avoider. To say selfish it's just like it's like a car can't cook your meal for you. And to say that to call your car a bad cook is true, but it's not. It's stupid. It doesn't make sense. Right. It's the limit that a car is meant to drive you. A human being is not made to serve God. on the way that we understand serving God. A human being is meant to be Mekayim the Olam, so that the Yidden can actually be Oved the Ein Sof. So to say it's selfish, it's not selfish. They've done their avodas Hashem by becoming. Gandhi had done his thing. I just use him as a dogma. I don't know the guy personally, but he had become, so to speak, an Oved Hashem in the same way, not in the same way, but like a behemoth, not in the same way, Bichlal, but like a behemoth is also Oved Hashem. Like a behemoth doesn't, like we say in Birchas Achoy, that when we in Kiddush Levana, they're not Meshana Tafkidam. Yeah, all the stars and the mazolas and whatever, yeah? So in that sense, all of the natural world is serving Rabbeinu Shalom. It's in line with Ratzon Hashem, but not consciously. The avodah of the Umos HaOlam is not to run the default. By the way, if you want to, what's the first bracha we say in the morning? You know what that really is? Le'emes, think about that. That's Losha Naki for saying Shelo Sani Behema. Not going to say such a thing. You talk and mention a chicken as well, by the way. But you're not going to say that. No, you say Laila. Well, that sounds a little bit like, that sounds like a human being, no? The difference between an animal and a human being. You can't say Shelo Sani Behema. That wouldn't be a nice thing to say.
Thank you, Hashem, for giving a rooster Bina.
The sechli is also in seichel, and to be to understand. I'm saying it's clear that that's the kavanah of what?
The bracha is the whole word. You're saying that the world is meant to serve the Eibush.
Yeah, it's pasha that's what Chazal was coming to. It's pasha. You don't need a makor for that. That you need a makor to tell you the opposite. That's pasha. That's the first bracha. Yeah, Shelo Asani Behema, which is not a nice thing to say, so don't say that. Shelo Asani Goy, Shelo Asani Eved, Shelo Asani Isha. Those are madregas in Tzivoy. An a Behema has no Tzivoyim. A Goy has Shevet Tzivoyim. An Eved has 365, and how it work out, but a bunch more. An Isha. So an Isha probably has I don't know how it works out, but then Isha has more, and then a Yid, a male Yid has 613. However it works out, but it's an inyan of Tzivui.
Where exactly in Tanya do you see the opposite? I know the whole Tanya is based on this perspective of what Tony Robinson was saying over there. Meaning, is there specific words in the Tanya that
Dava Bifnei Asma? No. He's asking that the avoid of a Yid is not that. Where do we see that? So he says Liyos Dava Bifnei Asma. There's Harbe Makoimus that he says.
Perik Aleph at the end, maybe when he explained what Goy Hashem is.
Yeah, you could say that's a little strong, that language there. Elis Yoah. He said that there's more. It's the union of being a dava bifnei atzmoi, something unto yourself. That's the union, and your nefesh bahamis is only that. It can't not be that. It's a created being, but what it can do is it can educate itself. It can what's the word?
Functions.
In a sense, domesticate itself. It has a seichel. It can be mechanech.
Your nefesh has a seichel. There's the nefesh.
It's mechanech. It doesn't know. It can't. That's the point. It can't transcend itself, but it can be mechanech itself to understand that you're tucker right. It makes a lot of sense for me to be a mensch, and in fact, the more menschlich I am, the better that is for me. To the point where you're not even thinking about you anymore, and really all you're doing is thinking about other people. But it came from that shoresh of the alayich.
It was always becheshbon. A guy can never get out of being in a cheshbon. And that's the Shelo Asani Goy. Shelo Asani Goy.
You're throwing in a new nuance there, which is confusing a little bit. I know.
Even in Nefesh HaBahamis itself, we're not even talking about the Nefesh HaLikus.
We're talking about the Nefesh HaBahamis.
Within Nefesh HaBahamis, we say Shelo Asani Goy.
Oh, I mean, look, a Jew is...
No,
I hear what you're saying. The definition is definition of a Jew.
We don't have
Definition.
Oh,
You need a definition of a Jew. Shmuel, you'll realize this will clear up everything for you. Definition of a Jew, which is the most important thing to have a definition of. Definition of a Jew is a human being, how I've understood from my Rebbe, is a human being with a neshama. A neshama is not Jewish. A neshama is a neshama. There's no such thing as a Jewish neshama.
That's why we're Jewish.
So, a human being with a neshama is a Jew. So, when you say Shlosani Goy, you're talking about the whole picture. Nefesh Bahamis, Nefesh Maskeles, Nefesh Kis, the whole thing. Guf, Levushim, the whole thing is the Jew. So we're not talking. You're not talking from perspective. When you say Elokai Neshama Sensata B, that's a tefillah from the mouth of Nefesh Bahamis, because the Neshama Sensata B, the neshama that you put in me. Well, then
Isn't the Nefesh Maskeles?
Yeah, in the morning you feel very gashmis and megusha.
That's the avoid of the morning.
So that's why the Shabbat was sent to be, and then slowly by Shema you feel already.
That's the avoider of Shacharis. That's why we've said over and over and over and over again is that if you want to begin avoidus Hashem, then start taking Shacharis seriously and find yourself a minyan that isn't like the regular minyanim here. Which is sorry to say, but it's very difficult to daven in the regular minyanim here. You have to be a warrior to daven how you're meant to daven in the minyanim everywhere. I go to Shimon and Tzaddik early in the morning every day because of that. So I realised that Rabbi Salanta said that should you learn, what is it like, if you've got an extra half an hour, do you learn Gemara or Musa? He said you learn Musa and then you'll see you've got much more time to learn other stuff as well, yeah? And I just want to, in my chutzpah, I'm going to add on to that without Shacharis, you didn't even begin, that is the beginning of Yiddishkeit Mamash. To take Shacharis seriously, to give it the respect that it's due. That is, without that, you're building on quicksand. Mamash. Shacharis should be so the idea of the Nefesh Bahamis saying that is, we're talking about the whole, when you say Shalosani Goy, we're talking about the entire picture of the entire composite being, what we call Yisrael. So we've got all the pieces in place now. It should be quite simple to understand, yeah? So you've got the Nefesh Bahamis, yeah? We were discussing what is Sinas Chinam, which was, I had no intention of talking about this Bichlal, but Hashkacha, this is the Zman to talk about it, because we're in the Omer, which is exactly the Inyanim, Rebbe Kiva's Talmidim. And now, the Nefesh Bahamis, let's say he likes coffee, he likes money, he likes beer, and another thing he likes?
Chocolate.
That's
Steak.
Steak. Great. Okay. Now, this is the wall. This is the egoic wall. This is what he's interested in. Now, like we said, his desire to survive is the b'mischazek, this wall. Conceptually. With me?
That's his reason of surviving.
That's
No,
what,
it's
no,
ensuring
the opposite. It's the manifestation of his ratzon to survive.
Reason of survival.
It's what he does.
No. He wants to survive.
Because I like the steak.
Huh?
No. The Tainug is not the steak is not Tainug. This is what I'm about
He
to say.
doesn't
is-
wake up in the morning and say, I need steak. He wakes up in the morning and says,
I need coffee.
and then he finds the
Need
steak.
coffee.
It's like,
This is an important idea. Shalom Aleichem. Important idea is that we've said this many times. This is very important, a complete what's the word?
Paradigm shift.
Reframe, a complete reframe. To instead of saying the chocolate gives me pleasure, is to say the chocolate touches my pleasure. That's a deep, 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 deep idea. Yeah, the chocolate doesn't give you pleasure. The chocolate touches your pleasure. Oineg is the essence of the soul in any soul. In any soul. The oineg is the essence of. So for you, because of your nature and nurture, yeah, the chocolate touches your. But for the Chassidish kids, yeah, who grew up where I grew up, it could be the herring touches their oineg, and you give the herring to one of the kids where I grew up in London, and they'd throw up, you know. So what touches, and you can pervert yourself to start getting pleasure from pain. You know, people that's called a masochist. You get all kinds of wacky stuff. Yeah. So it's not that there's pleasure in the chocolate or the steak or the beer. Those experiences touch your pleasure. That's why you're after them.
If you love something, you say I like steak, but you really love yourself.
That's exactly the point. That's the nice way to say it. I didn't think of it like that. That's exactly the point. Exactly.
That's like a common vision.
Yeah.
Okay.
So now, so really the reason why you're into all of these things is because you're touching the essence of your humanity, the essence of your mortal being. And what does that do?
You feel alive.
That's now you're alive. Like Descartes, he didn't say this, yeah, but he said it in French and he didn't mean this. But the way people say it is, I think, therefore I am. Yeah, he was much cleverer than that. Yeah, but he that's what they say. Yeah. So if that's what he said, because I think I know that I am, yeah, a much more accurate, in fact, the way I understand it, a truly accurate statement would be, I experience pleasure, therefore I am. When you're experiencing pleasure, you absolutely are. You couldn't be fooled that you're not. You with me? So.
Or when your life is threatened.
What?
When your life is threatened, you also feel very alive. So people do things in order to, like. That's what we just said earlier. That's the survival mechanism that kicks in with the suicidal person when his life gets genuinely threatened. He now wants to live. Go to a guy who's suicidal and put a gun to his head, and I could imagine, most of them would probably, beg you for mercy. I don't know, but that's exactly what you're saying. The same idea that you're reconnecting to this wall. So all of these things now, Colesman, you don't know this, what we've just said, yeah, which is not that many people who do know this, yeah, from my experience. Now let's say I'm a big tzaddik, yeah, and I've decided now that I am going to take a vow of celibacy. So I cut this line here. I vowed celibacy.
Fasting.
What?
Fasting.
Huh?
Fasting.
What?
Fasting.
Fasting. I said fasting. Exactly, the same thing. This is exactly going back to the point of fasting where this whole discussion began. Yeah? So now I've cut off, is exactly the point. I've cut off my, let's do that, food. In Yana de Yoma. Okay, so now, the guy decided celibacy is too much for him. He can't deal with that. Yeah. So he's going for the easy option that I'm fasting. Okay. So I'm gonna break my attachment to food. Now, who decided that he's going to do that? No. Well, I'm saying this Nefesh Bahamis has decided right now that the best thing to do is to stop eating.
Why? The Nefesh Bahamis would want to eat. And the Neshama would say,
he has conscience.
Now, generally the Nefesh Bahamis does want to eat, and that's why he says in the beginning of Tanya that David HaMelech killed his Nefesh Bahamis, his Yetzer Hara, with tinus. Yeah? But when we understand the inyan of tinus, which is really keeping promises, it becomes a different thing. Yeah? That I can now say that I'm not having food, but if it's that being that's saying that I'm going to abstain from food, all he cares about is this. And now he has linked to another thing
called fasting, just like he likes coffee, money, beer, steak, food. He cut food and now connected to this. So he's mishazik this. He can't not be mishazik this. Or now, let's say he's mamash a big tzaddik, so he broke his thing from fasting, and his whole thing is Yishuv Haaretz. Yeah. Now he's still. This is his inyan. He's a Yishuv Haaretznik. So he's Inyan now. He's still solidifying this. So now the whole of Avodas Hashem gets flipped on its head. Am I trying to stop speaking lashon hara? Am I trying to stop looking at bad stuff on the computer? Am I trying to learn with more diligence? Am I trying to daven more diligence? Am I trying to give more tzedakah? Am I trying to treat my wife more nicely? Am I trying to put on tefillin and Rabbeinu Tam? Am I trying all the different avodas? Yeah. And you missed the whole thing because really the avodah, nefesh elokis, the avodah is breaking that line.
How do you know if you're doing it from the nefesh elokis to if you're doing it from the?
So that's what we said about your Ahavas Yisrael. Now, don't get me wrong. I only learned this a few months ago, maybe a year ago or so, that even Ahavas Yisrael can become a shita. By the way, these things are called shitas in Lashon Tanya. Yeah, this is the inyan of shita, or maybe you could say in Torah Chabad. These ideas are shitas. Yeah, shitas are what give you.
Pleasure for the soul.
It's identification. A shita is an ideology. It's something you're identified with. Yeah. So really, what a person could be doing if he hasn't learned Torah Baal Shem Tov properly is that he's working on all of these inyanim, and it sounds very good. I'm not. Go to your Rebbe and tell him that I've decided to not eat steak for a month. He give you a pat on the back, kol hakavod. Well, I'm not.
What's wrong with steak?
I personally, I have gout, so I have to be careful.
Avodas Hashem could also be in those shitas if you're not doing it l'shma.
Then it's not Avodas Hashem. But yeah, anything can be here. Like we said, fasting can be here. Like I said, I told you.
But they're not taivas, they're shitas. Because fasting is not taivas.
No, it's a new taiva.
But MS, they're taivas.
It's a new taiva, it's a different word.
No. But in reality, there's only one taiva. Taiva is to live. That's the taiva. We say we've got a taiva for chocolate.
Identity is that kind of also being alive. Identity. It gives you pleasure.
That's the point. It gives you. It's easy to say. It solidifies you. So this could be any.
The whole world is a taiva.
Everything can become. You can identify with your backache. A person can, if he doesn't have, a portfolio of property in New York, yeah. And he's scratching for something to identify with, he will identify, and we see this, you could vouch for this, people identify with their abused childhoods to the point where they can't actually let go of it. They can't let go of it because that's giving them this wall. So you're like, why you're harping on the fact that, that this happened to you when you were 4 years old and you've been harping on it for 50 years, yeah. And the reason why they're still involved in it is because they haven't got anything else to give them their identity. So that becomes their identity. You can use anything to become an identity.
It's a word identity all of a sudden.
What you?
They call it slave mentality. People are blaming that I can't get a job, I can't hold it together, I have to leave my family because my grandfather was a slave, so therefore I'm behind the 8 ball already. They lock into slave mentality.
So now they've identified with the fact that they were slaves. Right. Whatever it is, you can identify with anything.
That's the machshava that you talk about.
It's all in machshava. This is all human. It's all in the realm of machshava.
So basically switching, let's say, from steak to fasting, or from fasting to Yishuv Haaretz, or something like it's basically like a child transforming from a little car to a little toy car.
That's exactly what he says in Tanya.
Loving a big car.
Exactly what he says in.
It's all about the attachment to it.
That's exactly what he says in Perek 6 of Tanya. B'diuk, how you said it. Listen. He says, a cotton loves insignificant things, b'chusei erech, that aren't worth anything, lefisha sichloi kotten v'kotze lahasig dvarim yakayim yosem mehem. Because he can't be masig things that are worth more. Yeah? That meaning that, so it's lefi erech. He says that he uses the word lefi erech, meaning as the mind expands. So if you don't do any avoida as a human being, yeah, as a kid you're into Tonka toys and klafim and v'chulei. But as your mind expands naturally in this world, you realise that Rolex watches and sports cars are more valuable. So you will stop caring about Tonka toys and you will move into the realm of Rolex watches and sports cars. Nothing happened. Nothing really changed. Your mind got a little bit bigger. But if you're an intelligent person and you actually realise that Rolex watches and sports cars are not going to give you what you're actually looking for, then you will start going right and you'll start realising, like what Anthony Robbins realised, that really you want the most out of life, give your life to everyone else. That's a human, that is the spitz of being human.
How do you know, though, that learning Torah or one of those things are not also feeding your...
It can.
It is. Anything.
They can be.
I'm
a total lishma boy
when
lishma.
you're moving from the...
That's what we said at the beginning before you came in. We said according to me, I'm sure there's lots of other stuff. The only simon that I know of that is an accurate litmus test of your lishma, which is really what we're talking about. This is low lishma, and cutting this is called lishma. The neshama's lishma. So this is the whole avoida. Yeah. The only litmus test that I know of lishma is your Avos Yisrael, because that's the one thing that the Nefesh Bahamis. Now he can take the shita of Avos Yisrael, but he can't actually take Avos Yisrael because it's a steerer to his wall.
I think the simon is if you get upset if it's threatened.
That's it.
If it's threatened.
I said, however it expresses.
Someone's going to take away your ability, the kosher food or the whatever, this or that, and you're all of a sudden upset. Why are you upset? Only the Nefesh Bahamis gets upset.
Well, that's the
Nefesh
Bahamis has three opinions of people. A person who can strengthen his wall, he will be miscarried. A person who will affect his wall negatively, he'll be misrachik. And a person who doesn't make a difference to him, he will be ambivalent towards. That's called an avatali b'dava that you mentioned. What's your name? That's called an avatali b'dava. It will always be dependent on: are you good for me? Are you bad for me? Or are you nothing to me?
What is the explanation of cutting off between? Because we are Nefesh Bahamis and we are Nefesh Elikos.
We're not talking about cutting the relationship off. We're talking about breaking.
Identification.
And that's what he says in chapter 32. He says it. Listen to how he says. He says it in a slightly more, different language.
If you're learning Torah and you don't get pleasure from it, is that a simon that it's lishma?
No.
Chazanish says that when you're learning Torah and you have no feeling whatsoever, and you're just doing it because the Eibush Torah was Tzavi is Melas Lishma.
Yeah, but then there's
the Nefesh Chaim who says that Lishma is when you get pleasure from learning it, and these are all big inyanim that really need to be spoken about a lot. And it really,
after effect.
And
it's a the feeling is after effect. Nothing to do with the actual.
You're chayav to give. I think that the answer to the way I understand it, you are chayav. We were talking about this last night. It's a whole big inyan, and if you want to, I just put the video on YouTube if you're interested in watching it. What? No pleasure whatsoever. That everyone knows you have to give your avoida to Hashem, meaning you have to give not your avoida, you have to give the Maisa mitzvah. Yeah, have all the kavanas about Kriya Shema in the world, and you don't say Shema Hashem Hashem Echad, nothing. Yeah, and then there's mitzvah of Yichud Hashem, but you didn't get the mitzvah of Shema Yisrael or Tefillin. If the Maisa mitzvah is off, there's nothing. So the foundation is the Maisa mitzvah. That's the first thing. Yeah. What's the next thing you have to give to Hashem? The kavana. Kavana's a mitzvah. He wants that as well. It's not enough just the kavana without the mice is nothing. But the kavana without the mice is like wings without a bird. Yeah? What's that? Some feathers. The mitzvah without kavana is like a bird without wings. That's already a real manda'ama. You have halachas with a bird without wings.
Har Sinai was switched. The Har Sinai was switched.
But Har Sinai before it was the other way. Yeah, don't get confused there. Yeah, we spoke about that before. Yeah, but now the materials of reality is that the Maisa mitzvah is primary. That's the first thing you have to give to Hashem. Without the Maisa mitzvah, there's nothing. That's giving really the goof. Yeah, and the energy, the life energy of the nefesh bahamis. Yeah. Now the next thing is you have to give the kavana, the avra and yira. He wants that as well. So the goof, the mitzvah without kavana is like a goof without a neshama. Yeah, which is still it's still a choshev thing. We're mechaber a goof very much. Go to Levi, we're very much mechaber a goof. So it's a goof without a neshama. But it doesn't do anything. Yeah. So the first, we're getting to the answer right now. So this is the answer. What you're asking is the first thing is you give the Maisa mitzvah. The second thing is you give the Kavanasa mitzvah. And if you're really, really givoldik, you give him your oineg as well.
I think this is exactly what we're saying over here. The idea to identify with the feeling, or I'm doing what the nefesh Kristus, and the nefesh feels automatically. It's an automatic response. I'm not focused on it, but it's rather an automatic response that Hashem is giving me an extra credit.
You could say it like this. Are you the nefesh habahamis, or is the nefesh habahamis your project?
Wow.
That would be a good way of saying it. Meaning the nefesh habahamis is your project. That is your korban that you are being makriv to the Rebbeinu Shalom kol rega v'rega, 24/7. That is what you're giving to the Rebbeinu Shalom. That's the tzad hashavah from every mitzvah. Every single mitzvah. Tefillin uses black leather and pashias and dioi v'chulei. Yeah, tzitzis is tzena and geffen. And tzedakah is mos and v'chulei, yeah? The tzad hashavah of every single mitzvah is, there's a chelik of the mitzvah that is the koyach of doing the mitzvah. That's what you're giving to the Rebbeinu Shalom. So the Nefesh Bahamis is your project. So breaking this line means that you have stopped identifying with this.
Meaning you can still go and enjoy the steaks.
You could be doing all of these things.
Who's not identifying anymore? I need this.
No, that's the work. That's the work.
The Nefesh Bahamis is not identifying anymore with Nefesh Bahamis.
I'll tell you why. This is the unique matzev that us lucky Yidden find ourselves in. Is that for the first time, we've said this many times, and I spoke about it last night, and this is what the name of my organisation is, which is B'nai Aliyah. This is the Indian of the B'nai Aliyah, and this answers up where Reb Manis Friedman has allowed himself to be dragged through the mud so deeply for his insistence on the fact that Hashem needs your avodah, yeah, which is just driving so many people mad, yeah, and this is the whole point of it, is because we are in, the way I understand it, is that we are in an extremely unique situation in that not only is our survival taken care of, which is a chiddush throughout all of history, our survival is taken care of, but we've overdosed on oineg. We've been touching our pleasure of the nefesh habahamis so much that we are now ready, don't get me wrong, a lot of us are addicted to it, but we are now finally ready to ascend that. Because we just know, like there's a great video that I should have posted in the seeds of Jim Carrey getting his second Golden Globe Award. You saw the video? It's a very important thing to watch. It's about a 20-second video. It's Jim Carrey, you know Jim Carrey, yeah?
Comedian.
Yeah. He's a very deep guy. And he gets up and he says, now I've got my second Golden Globe. And you can see you have to watch it. He's basically saying, this isn't enough. This isn't what it is. Like, I always thought the Golden Globe would be what it's about. Yeah, and now I'm getting my second one. He said, and now I'm Jim Carrey. He said, I used to be Jim Carrey, dreaming about getting my second Golden Globe. Now I'm the Jim Carrey dreaming about getting my third Golden Globe. Yeah,
I'm not Jim Carrey right now. I'm not Jim Carrey right now. You got second
the
one.
point exactly. Everyone knows. It's just but the point is, you've had the most. You've eaten food that the Caesars of yesteryear couldn't have imagined. Yeah, the idea of being uncomfortable in our generation is unthinkable. Wait, the Mazgan is like 3 degrees too hot. You start complaining. It's crazy. How do you deal with that? What, the leathers of my car aren't like aerated? Chas v'shalom, I'm not going to put up with that. You can't fool us anymore. It's pasha. Everyone knows this. What, you think the next holiday is going to be the answer? Why wasn't last holiday enough? You need the next one. And then what they do, and then this is the funny thing is, this is what the wealthy people I've seen end up doing if they're not put together, is these pleasures become the project. I mean, they buy a new house, and then for like a couple of years, they're just asking themselves the question, what will give me more pleasure? And then they plan these extravagant holidays where they're comparing and contrasting the pleasures and the whole. And it's like we've gone to this. We're at the place now where we are ready to get out of pleasure, which means ascending the nefesh of Bahamas, which means getting out of Sinas Chinam. It's taken 2,000 years of Hashem gently maneuvering us to this place, and that's what the Tanya calls the Bnei Aliyah, and the Bnei Aliyah is over the Shem L'tzorech Gavoya is the lashon of the Tanya. I'll read you what the Tanya says. The Tanya says, "V'loi kedei ledabka bo yizbrach bilvad." Not, imagine that. Not just to quench my thirst for God. That's not why he's serving. Bilvad. Lavo is tzima'oin nafsham ad samal Hashem, to quench the thirst of the soul that's thirsting for God. Ella could appear. What does it say? So he said it early. He said, "He brings a bit more. His masbeh drop more. The tzorech gavoya. Now you understand why we have for the need of God. He says the word tzorech gavoya, the higher need. He's not even serving God to fulfill his godly desire, the desire of the nefesh of Elokis. That's, by the way, maybe even on a higher level where we disidentify with that. Well, that's a whole different thing. We'll talk about that. But that's the reason why Rav Manis has allowed himself to be dragged through the mud by unapologetically and consistently driving home the fact that Hashem needs your avodah, because without that, all there is this. I'm just serving myself. The game never begins. If you can't do something for the Ribbono Shel Olam, well then who are you doing for? And you've fallen back into the whole. That's what's called a misnagid. Why is he called a misnagid? And it wasn't the Hasidim versus the Litvishavel. B'chalal. In fact, as a joke, Hashem put into the Bria that the Vilna Gaon was called the Chassid Mevilna, and the Balatanya was called the they call him the Litvak. They call him the Litvak. Yeah, exactly the point. It wasn't a machlokas between the Litvish and the Hasidim. It was a machlokas between the Hasidim and the Misnagdim. And you'll realize now in this generation, these payers and the beard and the strand and all that stuff, yeah, that's nothing at all to do with Hasidus. You get Hasidim, Hasidish people who are mamash misnagdim, and you get Litvish tzaddikim who are mamash Hasidim. It's not It's just a different style of clothing. That's all it is, and a different connection to facial hair. So without the tzorech gavoya, your avodah is human, and a Jew has been reduced to a human being. So Rav Man is a very, very big person, and he recognizes that, and he's decided to take the bullet for that. He didn't have to keep going on and saying what and then if you understand Al Pi Kabbalah, where is the tzorech gavoya? If it's by Zoin, or if it's Lamala from Avram Bino and Ba'arech, or if Ein Sof, or all the Madregas, where does it end, where does it begin? From my knowledge, it's 100% inaccurate to say that at the level of Zer Ampin and Nekeva, Hashem doesn't need avodah. That's 100% inaccurate. It's 100% true to say that at the level of Zoin, that's called Yichud Kudsha B'Richu Shchintei. Zampin is called the Kodesh Baruch Hu, and Nuk is called Shechina. So in our less Kabbalistic Lashon, we would call that the Shem Yichud Kudsha B'Richu Shchintei, the Yichud of Knesset Yisrael, and the Torah, which is the Shechina and the Kodesh Baruch Hu. It's all the same thing, just different words, explain different ideas. That different nuances in the idea. At that level, that's for sure Hashem needs our avodah. To say need is a correct term, the way I understand it. Beyond that, which is really where the point of contention is, the way that I understand things from my other Rebbe, who's Rav Hass, is you can't say that he needs. Yeah, beyond that level, when you get up to the level of Avon Immer and Arich, of Adai Atik, and for sure Ein Sof, Atzmus, whatever we want to call it, yeah, then you can't say that. But, very importantly, just like you can't say that he doesn't need anything at that level, so that just like you can't say that he needs something at that level, you can't say that he doesn't need something at that level. The point of why you can't say anything of those levels beyond is because you can't say anything about it. So to say that he doesn't need is as inaccurate as saying that he does need. It's kind of becomes kind of semantics.
What did he create us for?
What?
What did he create us for if not to do all that Hashem,
Yeah. If they've got Tiv, so why you have
so
to
that's not Pasha. That's not that statement that you said is what this everything we're talking about is based on, which is the Ramchal, and that's not what the Arizal says. That's not what it says in the end of Pirkei Avos as well. It says Lechavoidoi. It says for his covered. So I don't know why it happened that the Ramchal became the father of Haredi Hashkafa. Yeah, I don't know why that happened. And I would also go as far as to say that when you've got the Masorah of Tanya, yeah, the real Masorah of Tanya, and you learn the Mesilas Yesharim, you're learning an absolutely different book to what they learn in the yeshivas. Mamash. Like the Ramchal was a Chassid Mamash. And the
Ramchal was banished in the beginning. Afterwards,
yeah, Vadai. Everyone who spoke MS gets banished.
But if you learn Kesef Shem Tov, it's like the missing word in every puzzle.
There's no way. And it says L'Sanei Gal Hashem. There's no Chazal that says that. There's a pasuk in the Navi that we say on Shabbos and Kiddush. There's no Chazal that says that if you read the beginning of Sinas Chinam.
It's the only way to make actually sense in a way to explain it in the Muslim way. It's like the missing puzzle for every piece.
No, it's not. It's only that's the only
most pieces.
No, it doesn't explain anything at all when you think about it deeply. It's only when your concept of when you're somech on your understanding of the Rebbeinu Shalom, that then you might want to say this. But if you can extract yourself from your egoic existence, from your egoic taiva to know, to need to know, and you're happy to jump into the sea, yeah, which is the avoider of the yid, then you won't need to say this bichlal. And you
you don't have to say anything at that point.
You have a copy of Eitz Chaim?
Nothing does make sense.
Find a copy of Eitz Chaim, read the first few words of Eitz Chaim, and you know what I'm talking about? He says the Lashon Muchrach, that Hashem was Muchrach to be boire the oilam. He was chayev, he was forced. Muchrach. The what?
The beginning of Derech Hashem.
No, the Derech Hashem doesn't. The Derech Hashem says Derech Tov Lahativ.
do you want to show? There's a Derech Hashem. I'll show you a beautiful diuk that you can. That I think is a very. And I know that the Ramchal wasn't going against the Arizal, but this diuk actually makes the Ramchal and the Arizal shtim. There isn't an Oitzvus Chaim here, is there?
No, we have
Is there? You see it? There's an Oitzvus Chaim there.
Is it Kabbalah? Oitzvus Chaim is Kabbalah?
Yeah. There's Derech Hashem. Yo, you know there's a Derech Hashem.
Oh, Derech Hashem, yeah.
Derech Hashem.
You have Oitzvus Chaim as well. Yo, there's an Oitzvus Chaim.
We have Yitzhak Tubi.
I can imagine it's
very
very
good.
good.
Same one we do it by heart. We don't do it.
I heard the Rabbi Control say the words. There's not one word in the
Right there.
Yeah, it's partial. So there can't be. So if you look at the beginning, it's really interesting to see this lotion in the Oitzer in the. I can say it. I'll say it anyway. You can look it up for yourselves. But it's very easy to find at the very beginning of the Oitzer Chaim. You should look it up. And this is a very important deal. Listen to this. Hine. This is so important to remember. Okay. What when we talk about the kiseh covered, what are we talking about? We're talking about olam abriya. What's the covered? Huh? The kiseh is the olam abriya, and it's called the kiseh covered.
Olam Abriya, what? Because it brings out the most
Briya
of Hashem.
Yitzir Asir, the highest level of
It
creation.
brings out the most of Hashem. The most of Hashem's revelation.
It brings out the
most revelation of Hashem is here because it's so much choshev, so you can get.
Wait.
Down Hashem.
Just without going further, just to understand what I'm saying, isn't it? The
Hestaponim is the strongest, therefore it's covered.
The what is the strongest?
Hestaponim is the strongest.
That's the strongest.
So it's easy to show his face, but it's harder to actually create something which doesn't show his face, and that's the biggest cover.
You say it, but the cover. No. But what is Hashem's covered? Meaning you're talking about the Hashem's covered is at Sinas. When
Briya's where period starts.
Yeah, Briya's where exactly. So covered at Silas is the ore from the Shemesh is a netzal of the Shemesh. It's really difficult to talk about this. That's why Chazal only spoke in Moshalim, because you can't define these things. You just need the moshel. The sun and the rays of the sun is the whole thing. Try and speak this. Does the sun create the light? No, the sun emits the light. You turn around to the sun and say, "Why are you shining?" He'd be like, "What are you talking about? I'm the sun. That's what I do." Yeah, just like you say to the Nefesh Bahamis, "Why do you want to live?" Exactly the same inyan. Yeah. So if you put your hand, you can't separate the covered. You can't separate at Silas the netzal from the matzil. You can't separate them. But are they the same thing? Well, no. The light from the sun is different from the sun. But you put your hand between the sun and the light gets discontinued. So is it the sun or is it not the sun? You can talk about that, and maybe that's a good thing to talk about. But the moshel, you get the idea. Yeah, these aren't things to define clearly, because it's beyond Loshen and this understanding. That's why we've got Moshalim. Yeah, that the relationship of Atzilus to the Matzil is the same relationship as the rays of light to the sun. Is it something separate from the sun? We could argue that out. No, yes,
Sort of.
kind of, don't know. Probably not. And if you say it is, I'll say it isn't. If you say it isn't, I'll say it is. I'll be your wife. That's how it goes, yeah? I know about your wife. So a wife in general. So that's covered. That's so what's the kiseh covered? It's amazing how it's all marumas in the words. The kiseh, well, that's for sure not Hashem.
It's a kli.
It's his chair. The cover, now when, I talk about like when I was talking on Shabbos, like Elon Musk walking into the room. I would doubt, or Donald Trump, I would doubt that anybody would stay sitting if Donald Trump walked into the room right now. You would stand up for him.
Yeah, I think you'd be chayav to stand up. In fact, you for sure would be chayav to stand up for him. Yeah, that you stand up for him. Why? Because of his covered. It's his covered. When you're with him, it's emanating from him. His covered is emanating from him. Yeah, l'havdil. But the kisei covered, that's not him. That's the olam bria. That's the olam period, like you said. That's when period begins. So bria, yitzir, asiya, those are. Again, Hashem Echad, we know that, and there's nothing other than Hashem, to say that. But that's not helpful to say that when we're talking in the technical term. The difference, there was a gargantuan difference, an infinite difference between Atzilus and Bria. The difference between Atzilus and Bria is infinitely more than the difference between the highest level of Bria and the lowest level of Asiya. And just tangentially, this is what explains Rav Yoel Khan's explanation that the difference between Yisrael and of the Umos Ha'olam is infinitely greater than the highest of the Umos Ha'olam neged a stone.
Wow. Say that again.
Infinitely greater. I look at this guy, he's like the same as me. In fact, he's got much better midas than me, and his wife likes him more than me, and he's doing more good for me, doing more good to the world than I am. But still, the difference between the Yisrael and the Umos Ha'olam is infinitely more than the highest of the Umos Ha'olam neged a stone. Because we're talking about the world of Bria and down, the world of creation. These are all created things. Everyone's with me? So Nishmas Yisrael is mushrash, let's say in Atzilus. Maybe it's
Tachas Kisei HaKavod.
What? That's the Tachas Kisei HaKavod. I don't know. I swear past that one time. It's interesting. There's all of these inyanim teach you moiridik azachin. But it is Tachas Kisei HaKavod. It's not the Kisei HaKavod. So now let's go to the Ramchal. What does the Ramchal say? And so it's beautiful to see the Loshen. The Arizal says at the beginning of Oitzvus Hayim, there was a Siba Noidas, yeah? Which means a reason that he was identified with. Noidas from Loshen Das, which is Loshen identification, yeah, merging. That the Siba Noidas, that he was Matzo Ne'et Salim. That's what it says. The Siba Noidas, that the Ein Sof, the Or Ein Sof was Matzah Ne'et Salim. He made it Silas.
Emitted emanation.
Was so that all of his kinuyim he could be called Chanun, Baruchim, B'chulei. Listen to the Lashon here. Hine. This is Moedik. And you can't know this without learning a bit of Kabbalah. Not much Kabbalah, but a bit. Hine. Hatachlis Babria. Haya lahativ mituvoi. The tachlis in the bria is lahativ mituvoi yizbrach shemoi lezulasoi. Once there is tzilus and now there's room for bria, now the reason for bria is that, but the reason for this is the difference between Am Yisrael and the Umos Ha'olam, is that Am Yisrael is shaykh to tzilus. And then was Olam Hashayach to bria down. So this Indian of Derech HaTov Lahativ, that makes perfect sense for a creation.
The word before.
Yisrael's not a creation. We're a Netzal. Yeah. We are creation as well, so we have to play that game as well. But that's not the ikkur of what a Yid is. You with me? And that puts the Ramchal and the Arizal and Mamash back in the same team. And like I said, the Ramchal is when you don't have some kind of, the way I see it is, someone told me before I learned any Kisvei Ari, is that I made a comment about Tanya. If you don't know Tanya, then the Likutei Moharan is very limited. Yeah, and so the guy turned around to me and he said, if you don't know Kisvei Ari, you've got no idea what Tanya's talking about. And what do I say? I knew nothing about Kisvei Ari, so I put my head between my legs and I said, sorry. Yeah? But as I started learning Kisvei Ari, I realized that he got it completely wrong. And that it's the Tanya that's keys to the Kisvei Ari. The Tanya mamash opens up the Kisvei Ari.
For us.
Or whoever, it's Maftechos.
For Bria.
No, not at all.
For us to understand, it's very.
No, because the Kisvei, the way that, remember, the Moshel is perfect to the Nimshel. This whole world is a perfect representation of all the higher Olamas.
How do you explain this way?
So, what?
How do you explain it in this way? Meaning.
Wait, you understand what I just said? This world is not, it's not like there's the Olam, it's like, why is the klipa of an orange orange?
You could say.
The klipa is the most chetzonius manifestation of the orange. A watermelon is green, the inside's red, which is the opposite colour. But the klipa is not like you've got the pre and then the klipa, and they're not. The klipa is the most chetzonius madrega of the ore, if you want to say it like that. You understand? You can't separate Kali and Urus. They're not. It's not like there's Kalim and there's Urus. They can't. The Klippa is a manifestation. So this world is an absolute accurate representation mitzad the Klippa of the higher Olamas. So as you get a deeper understanding into this world, which is what this sefer gives you, then when the Arizal is talking about Kalim and Urus, with Patisha and Nitzotzes spritzing out and falling to levels below and being nislaba into the nivla into the chetzonius of the Kalim, and you hear all these inyanim. And you understand what Patisha means, because you've got some kind, you understand what it means, Zera and Or, and you've got the picture of the Nefesh Halakis and the Nefesh Abahamis with Chochmah Bina Das and all the and how Yesod relates to Malchus and you see it in your goof and how it goes, then learning the Kisvei Ari is a completely different experience. And the way I know this, what?
But still, for us, meaning the Ari didn't need it.
Of course not. The Ari wrote it. It came from Shemayim for the Ari. But the way I saw this is because I've been learning Tanya very deeply for the past 20 years. And over the past, say, 4 or 5 years maybe, I've been learning Kisvei Ari with two different people who are both, they're like the opposite people you could imagine. But they're both mamash, I don't know why Hashem gave me such a schus, but they're both mamash bakiyim in Kabbalah and amazing things. And from learning that Kabbalah with them and with my background in Tanya, I'm explaining inyanim to them that is giving them, they're like, oh wow, psh, yeah, I see that. It's opening up it's opening up the Kisvei Ari for them. It's a trip. Well, why did we say that? That was completely off topic.
Because in order to explain the Kutei Mara, we need Tanya. For Tanya, we need Kisvei Ari. But from our perspective, Tanya is like the main
Rizzo is Pashut.
Israel is at a different level before the Bria.
Yeah, why would we say that?
Because the Atzilut has all the separations, right? But where before?
You mean Bria has the separations? No, remember, there was a specific thing that made me jump into that. But the point is, and we'll finish now, Mamash, that the avodah of Yisrael is the secondary avodah of Yisrael is the human side of Yisrael. This is the blessed life. This is what I'm doing with the blessed life. I took out all this time to teach you Pashata ideas about being human, because you can't do the Jewish bit without the human bit first. This is just the first maslul, the first part of a maslul that will go on for years and years, B'ezrat Hashem. That's the point. So you have to realize that you're a human and what a human is, which is not an axe-wielding, necrophiliac. That's not what. That's not what a human being is. Rahmanas. So this accounts. Going back to the whole thing, this accounts for the entire avodah. Sinas Chinam is being connected to the created part of who you are, being connected to the human aspect of you. And if you're not aware of what we've been speaking about, then avodas Hashem is breaking your connection to food, to steak, to beer, to money, to coffee, and kol zman, you're increasing this wall, and that's why marriages are getting harder and harder and harder. Because if this wall is very solid, that is an almost guaranteed, not 100% guaranteed, but an almost guaranteed problem for marriage. Almost guaranteed. There could be a interesting thing that two Nefesh Banas could start, but 98% of the time, that if your wall is big, strong, then marriage is going to be mamish, very, very difficult. Okay, so how do we break this wall down? Like we said, take one tissue. Start with these avoiders. Oh, by the way, good. I forgot that. We'll finish on this. That all of the list of the recognize the other. Yeah, that is a great. I mean, the real place to start is keeping promises. But that list of recognize the other is a really good list of things to do to help you break this wall, to help you dismantle this wall. And none of them are taking on this wall. None of them are like, okay, I'm going to now break my ego. It's relating to other people. It's not taking over the guy's parking space. It's not peeing in the swimming pool. Yeah. But I realised one thing that needs to be put on the list. I didn't put on for the new one. Is not killing anything. Don't kill a bug. Don't kill a bug. And that very few questions. That was the tikkun of Noach. That's why Noach came before Avraham, because it's easier to have Rahmanas on a behemoth than it is on a Ben Adam. So when we fell to the lowest level before Noach, the tikkun now came. Noach's tikkun was taking care of animals. Now, because they don't have an ego, so it's not so threatening. But then that was the hachana for Avraham, who was machnis orchim. He started taking care of human beings. Shkoyach.